What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Gage. Welcome to the channel. Today, I am excited to share with you my Dragapult EX deck profile from the current Pokemon TCG format. This deck is doing its best to center around just Dragapult himself. There are variants out there that do try to play other supporting attackers like Charizard, but I do my best to try to focus as much around Dragapult as possible because I think that he alone, on his own, is able to carry the deck and is able to get wins without having to clunk up the deck with some of those other attacking mons. However, those builds and those variants are just as valid, and this has just been working for me and has been a lot of fun, so I thought that I would show it off. And I really appreciate all the support that I am getting. I am getting closer to 400 subscribers, so if you are fans of Pokemon TCG content or other types of trading card game content, please consider leaving a like, commenting, and following to help out the small creators like myself. So enough yapping, I'm going to go ahead and hop right into the profile. So it would be a disservice if I did not start the profile by talking about the main man himself, Dragapult EX. This Pokemon, since its inception, has been a house because of really the Phantom Dive attack, which does 200 damage and can put 6 damage counters on your opponent's benched Pokemon in any way they like. And unfortunately, because these are damage counters, you are not able to protect yourself with things like Manaphy. You specifically would need a card that is preventing damage counters from being placed on your Pokemon, which in the current landscape of the game and format is few and far between. So the fact that Dragapult exists means that a lot of people have been choosing to play Pokemon that have at least a little higher than 60 HP, just so that they do not potentially get sniped by Dragapult's attack and prevent them from being able to give you essentially a free knockout just because their Mon just so happens to have 60 HP, which would be the range that he would be able to kill them. So that is obviously very strong. There are ways in which you are able to set up your Dragapult very quickly, and with the inclusion of the relatively newer A spec with the Sparkling Crystal, being able to essentially provide and make it so that you really only need the one energy to get that Phantom Dive off, has severely bolstered the strategy and its ability to get this attack off. So Dragapult is one of my favorite Pokemon for sure, and the full art here is looking absolutely gorgeous. I just love the different turquoise colors and the red. I think it complements the Pokemon very well. And so yeah, I just had to make sure that I built the deck myself, and that is why I think that 3 copies is enough. You could play 4, but I think that might be getting a little too bricky. There are never instances in which I'm like, dang, I really need my Dragapult. There are ways to be able to get it out pretty consistently, so I think that 3 copies is the sweet spot in a pure build like this. So talking about its Stage 1 pre-evolution next, I am playing, of course, the 4 Dracloak, which has a very powerful ability in Recon Directive. Once per turn, you can look at the top 2 cards of the deck and then put one into the hand, and the other would go to the bottom. So this allowing you to be able to dig deeper to see some of the cards that you might need. If you need a supporter, if you need an item, if you need a specific mon, Dracloak is one of the best consistency tools that the deck has to offer, and it's in engine. So a lot of the times I really don't mind establishing multiple Dracloaks just to ensure that I have some type of consistency and pseudo draw power to a certain degree. Because it is once per turn, you can use it. It's once per turn per copy, so as long as you have multiple established, you can use each of them once per turn. So if you have 2 set up, you can use the Recon Directive twice in that turn. So yeah, just obviously the best Stage 1 to be playing with the deck, and so of course you have to play 4 copies. And of course, nothing too special. I am playing the Dreepy just because you have to in order to actually play the deck. So, yeah, playing 4 copies of Dreepy. And then I am playing one mana fee just to be able to stave off my opponent's ability to do bench damage to me. Obviously, this does not affect opposing Dragapult EXs, but is still a welcome addition to the format in which there are still Pokemon like the Radiant Greninja, which have the ability to do sniping damage and things of that nature. So one mana fee has still been solid. And for consistency, I am playing the one Cleffa. I love the fact that the Grasping Draw is just nice in a pinch for being able to refill your hand. The fact that it is free means that you do not have to commit any energy into the Cleffa, and it is a nice pivot because of the fact that it has free retreat. So if you end up having a Pokemon that is knocked out, it is nice to be able to just put the Cleffa out into the active spot, get your free draw, and then if it just so happens to survive in the next turn, you can go ahead and use its free retreat to go ahead and go into and promote one of your Pokemon that is on the bench into the active slot with relative ease. So Cleffa is just a very good tech to be able to play in with this deck in particular, and that's why I'm playing the one copy. And I am playing the 2/2 line of Bidoof and Bibarel. A lot of the times I do find that I am going pretty low in card advantage, so having the ability to always ensure that my hand has at least a decent number of cards in it, so that I always have cards at my disposal is very strong. And Bibarel just saying once per turn you could draw until you have 5 cards in your hand is just very good at having a bench sitter that makes sure that you will always have access to card advantage. So I do like the two Bidoof and two Bibarel. I can see other options like the Dunsparce and things of that nature, but I have been liking the Bibarel. Now for supporters, I am of course playing 4 copies of Arven. Simple effect: search the deck for an item and a tool, reveal them, and put them into your hand. This is obviously very good for being able to add either your rare candies if you need to be able to get into your Dragapult very quickly. It is good for being able to grab your Sparkling Crystal because of the fact that this is a tool if you need to power up your Dragapult and get it ready for an attack. Arven is just, in many decks, very powerful for increasing the consistency, and so yeah, 4 copies is very welcome in this strategy. I am still playing 2 Professor's Research. There are a lot of times where I'm just like, you know what, I need a fresh hand, especially since you are playing multiples of so many different cards in the deck. So there are times where I'm just like, I need the card advantage in a pinch. So obviously it's less than ideal if your hand is full of a lot of evolution Pokemon. However, you will usually try to do your best to, play out whatever you need first and then go for the research. So I could see this being swapped out with something else, but research is just has always been very kind to me. So I do like at least playing the 2 copies. And I am playing 3 copies of Iono, mostly as disruption for your opponent and making sure that essentially you do not allow their hand to get crazy. So especially in the late game, this can be imperative in ensuring that your opponent does not see the pieces needed for them to be able to continue with their strategy. And so disruption in any card game I feel like is very powerful, and so having 3 copies of Iono is good at doing so. And of course, for some extra text, I am playing 3 copies of Boss's Orders. This is to ensure that your opponent is not hiding in the bench. Because we are playing Sparkling Crystal, we are not playing the Prime Catcher, which would usually take the spot of the Ace Spec in this deck, since you're only allowed to play 1 Ace Spec per deck. So having additional access to being able to ensure that you can knock out something that maybe your opponent is trying to retreat to prevent you from doing is good. And I play 3 because of the research, so you really don't mind if you end up discarding 1 or 2 of them, as long as you have at least 1 to make sure that you are able to consistently keep up the pressure. And I am playing the 1 copy of Crispin. There are just times where being able to find the 2 basic energies, because you do not have access to your Sparkling Crystal, is very powerful. Especially since you can attach one of them to your Pokemon, which would, if you do already have the Sparkling Crystal, instantly set up your Dragapult for an attack. So I have been liking the 1 copy in this strategy. And of course, I am playing 4 copies of Rare Candy, essentially allowing you to skip the stage 1 and go straight from your Dreepy into your Dragapult. It is very powerful in any evolution-based deck, and it is searchable, but a lot of the times you don't necessarily want to waste your search on this, especially if you already have one in your hand. So yeah, 4 copies is very good, and making sure you can always get into your Dragapult as fast as possible. I am playing 4 copies of Nest Ball, of course, just making sure that we have the consistency in setting up. Being able to search the deck for a basic and putting it right onto the bench gets you instant access to your Dreepies, your Cleffa, your Manaphies, or even your Bidoofs. So yeah, Nest Ball is, I feel, mandatory. And speaking of consistency, we have our Buddy Poffins, just one of the best free +1s that we have at our disposal in the Pokemon trading card game as of right now. Being able to search for 2 basic energy with basic Pokemon, with 70 HP or less, and then putting them into the bench. So yeah, again, it's just essentially an enhanced Nest Ball in this deck. So yeah, I feel as though playing 4 copies to ensure that as soon as you start the game, you have the highest probability of making sure that you are setting up everything that you need so that by turns 2 and turn 3, you are ready to start basically going in on your opponent, attacking as fast as possible, putting as much pressure as possible, and you do need 4 Buddy Poffin to ensure that that happens. And then, as I've mentioned a few times in the video, we are playing the Sparkling Crystal as our Pokemon tool. When the Terra Pokemon this card is attached to uses an attack, that attack costs 1 energy less. So that's broken. The fact that Dragapult can swing for 200 and then do bench damage for up to 6 damage counters, essentially 60 damage, is absurd for 1 energy. So that is why Sparkling Crystal is a huge addition to the strategy, and why I am choosing to play this A-Spec over any others. And I am teching the 1 copy of Counter Catcher. You never really want to be too behind on prizes in general, but of course, if you are, this is one of the best comeback tools that you have at your disposal, being able to give you essentially a free boss's orders. So the 1 of, it's searchable, so I don't necessarily think you need more than this, especially since you intend on putting the pressure sooner rather than later. So that means you're most of the time going to be, hopefully, up in the number of prizes, but of course, things don't always work out the way that you expect, and so Counter Catcher is good in a pinch. I am playing the 1 Super Rod just to be able to shuffle any of my Pokemon or energies from the discard pile back into the deck. If I do lose some of my Pokemon that had energy attached to it early on, being able to make sure that I can have access to my energies at all times is great. The Super Rod, if I do end up having to research something away, like discarding my Dragapults early on, I know I always have the ability to get it back later. So Super Rod is very versatile, and so I think that most decks should at least have 1 copy of a card that can recur in a pinch. I am playing the 1 Earthen Vessel. Again, this is just for consistency in ensuring that you have access to your energy cards. You can search the deck for 2 basic energies at the cost of discarding another card in the hand. So very powerful. Of course, this is searchable, so I don't necessarily feel as though you need more than 1, but it's a welcome addition to any deck. As far as additional tools, I am teching the 1 Technical Machine Evolution. As I mentioned, we want to set up as fast as possible. And the fact that this, for 1 energy, lets you choose 2 of your bench Pokemon and then evolve both of them by immediately grabbing those Pokemon from the deck and putting them on top of your bench, it expedites the evolution process. And this, for example, if you got 2 Dreepies out, all of a sudden now you have 2 Dracloaks, meaning that the next turn around, you're going to have even more consistency in your deck. And I am playing the 1 copy of Rescue Board because this essentially makes it so that almost everything in the deck has free retreat. The only thing that it doesn't is give the Bibarel free retreat, but it would just only cost 1 energy for us to be able to get the Bibarel out there. And that's only if, most of the time you're not going to have a Bibarel sitting out in the active. Most of the time it's going to be sitting on your bench. So this that situation doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes your opponent in desperation might be cheeky and try to boss out your Bibarel just to be able to stall for more time. But the Rescue Board makes it so that even if you do end up having to commit an energy to retreating the Bibarel, it doesn't hurt as much. But the fact that literally everything else in the deck would end up getting free retreat is just too enticing to not be able to play, since it is searchable off Arven as well. And then for the last consistency cards, I am playing 4 copies of Ultra Ball, just one of the best searcher type cards that we have in the Pokemon trading card game right now. Just being able to discard 2 cards and then search the deck for any Pokemon. It doesn't matter if it's a basic or an evolution. So if you do, this is where I was referring to. If you did need your Dragapult in a pinch, you can always search it off of the Ultra Ball. And of course, the Ultra Balls. Every time you think about items that you're playing, you have to say, all right, is this searchable off of Arbin? And most of the trainers that we are playing in the deck are. So 4 copies of Ultra Ball, just making sure that you have as much consistency in finding the Pokemon you need. And then I am playing 4 copies of the Psychic Energy and 4 copies of Fire Energy. Some people might consider this excessive. I have seen plenty of builds that have chosen to cut down on the number of energies, but I always just like being able to have a few extra, just so that I don't necessarily have to search it off of the Earthen Vessel. I totally see why people cut them, but personally for me, I always love having as much energy in the deck as possible, just so that I don't accidentally end up prizing one or too many or things of that nature. So guys, that is pretty much it for the deck profile. Thank you so much for taking the time to review my version of the deck. I'm by no means saying that this is the most competitive build or anything along those lines. I mostly just play casually with my friends, but I do think that if you are a fan of Dragapult, then being able to play the pure version in the way that I have described, maybe changing out some of the text and the different ratios, is the way to be able to go. So guys, thank you so much again. You are a real one if you stuck it out until this time. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you like content like this. And until next time, GG.